Hello, I'm just reading my favourite book by Ronald Dahl called Going Solo. Going Solo is an autobiography. That means it's a story of his own life. And I really enjoyed this book because Ronald Dahl had a fascinating life. Did you know, for example, he was very tall. He was 6'6". That's nearly as big as the giant footballer Peter Crouch. He was so tall that it nearly stopped him from training to be a pilot in World War II, but luckily they just allowed him to do it. At one time he crashed his plane in the desert. He also had a lot of adventures in Africa. He nearly got killed by a great big poisonous snake called a green mamba. Another adventure that he had in Africa involved his servant and, well, I'll tell you what, I'll read it and you'll find out what. It was a pretty scary incident. Suddenly the voice of a man yelling in Swahili exploded into the quiet of the evening. It was my servant Madishu. "Bwana, Bwana, Bwana," he was yelling from somewhere behind the house. "Simba, Bwana, Simba, Simba." Simba is Swahili for lion. All three of us leapt to our feet, and the next moment Madishu came tearing round the corner of the house, yelling at us in Swahili. "Come quick, Bwana, come quick, come quick. A huge lion is eating the wife of the cook." That sounds pretty funny when you put it on paper back here in England, but to us, standing on a veranda in the middle of East Africa, it was not funny at all. Robert Sanford flew into the house and came out again in 5 seconds flat, holding a powerful rifle and ramming a cartridge into the breech. "Get those children indoors," he shouted to his wife as he ran down off the veranda with me behind him. Madisha was dancing about and pointing towards the back of the house and yelling in Swahili. "The lion has taken the wife of the cook, and the lion is eating her, and the cook is chasing the lion and trying to save his wife." "Where is it?" Robert Sanford shouted, but he had no need to ask, for we were very quickly spotted the massive sandy-coloured lion not more than 80 or 90 yards off and trotting away from the house. He had a fine bushy collar of fur around his neck, and in his jaws he was holding the wife of the cook. The lion had the woman by the waist so that her head and arms hung down on one side and her legs on the other, and I could see that she was wearing a red and white spotted dress. The lion, so startlingly close, was loping away from us in the calmest possible manner, with a long, low-striding, springy lope. And behind the lion, not more than the length of a tennis court behind, ran the cook himself, in his white cotton robe and with his red hat on his head, running most bravely and waving his arms like a whirlwind, leaping, clapping his hands, screaming, shouting, 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 "Simba, Simba, 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 let go of my wife, let go of my wife." Oh, it was a scene of great tragedy and comedy, both mixed up together. And now Robert Sanford was running full speed after the cook, who was running after the lion. He was holding his rifle in both hands and shouting to the cook, "Pingo, Pingo, get out of the way, Pingo. Lie down on the ground so I can shoot the Simba. You're in my way. You're in my way, Pingo." But the cook ignored him and kept on running. And the lion ignored everybody, not altering his pace at all, but continuing to lope along with slow, springy strides and with his head held high and carrying the woman proudly in his jaws, rather like a dog who's trotting off with a good bone. Both the cook and Robert Sanford were travelling faster than the lion, who really didn't seem to care about his pursuers at all. And as for me, I didn't know what to do to help them, so I ran after Robert Sanford. It was an awkward situation because there was no way that Robert Sanford could take a shot at the lion without risking a hit on the cook's wife, let alone on the cook himself, who was still right in his line of fire. The lion was heading for one of those hillocks that was densely covered with jungle trees, and we all knew that once he got in there, we would never be able to get at him. The incredibly brave cook was actually catching up on the lion and was now not more than 10 yards behind him, and Robert Sanford was 30 or 40 yards behind the cook. "Aye!" The cook was shouting, "Simba, Simba, Simba, let go of my wife! I'm coming after you, Simba!" Then Robert Sanford stopped and raised his rifle and took aim. And I thought, surely he's not risking a shot at a moving lion when it's got a woman in its jaws. There was an almighty crack as the big gun went off, and I saw a spurt of dust just ahead of the lion. The lion stopped dead and turned his head, still holding the woman in his jaws. He saw the arm-waving, shouting cook, and he saw Robert Sanford, and he saw me, and he certainly heard the rifle shot and had seen the spurt of dust. He must have thought an army was coming after him, because instantaneously he dropped the cook's wife onto the ground and broke for cover. I've never seen anything accelerate so fast from a standing start. With great leaping, bounding strides, he was in among the jungle trees on the hillock before Robert Sanford could ram another cartridge into his gun. The cook reached the wife first, then Robert Sanford, then me. Couldn't believe what I saw. And you'll have to read on to find out what it was. No, only joking, I'll read it. I was certain that the grip of those terrible jaws would have ripped the woman's waist and stomach almost in two. But there she was, sitting up on the ground and smiling at the cook, her husband. "Where are you hurt?" shouted Robert Sanford, rushing up. The cook's wife looked up at him, kept smiling, and she said in Swahili, "That old lion, he couldn't scare me. I just lay there in his mouth pretending I was dead, and he didn't even bite through my clothes." She stood up and smoothed down her red and white spotted dress, which was wet with the lion's saliva. And the cook embraced her, and the two of them did a little dance of joy in the twilight, out there in the great brown African plain. And this book is full of fantastic stories like that, and that's why I enjoy it. What do you think, Roald?
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it, Mr. Brown, and I definitely think your children should read it.